Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanic. And if you enjoy this fanic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanic like this. And now let's start the fanic.
Hanabi lay uncomfortably under a thorn tree, trailing Hinata. The cold wind and the thorns from the bush that were rudely poking her in some very sensitive places made her wish she had actually put on some sensible clothes before following her sister. Really, Hanabi, who follows someone around in extremely thin silk pajamas at 2 in the morning. Hanabi shifted to see better as Hinata was talking to or choking someone on the corner. Hanabi sweared her older sister was a demon at sometimes. If Hanabi remembered right, when she was about 4 or 5 and Hinata was about 10 or 9, Hinata used to act shy around her elders, but when they left her and Hinata alone, Hinata would pull her by her hair and fling her around like a rag doll, and whenever they went to the springs, Hinata would hold her head under the water until she couldn't breathe and raise her head up again only for her to take a breath and go back under. Until Hinata graduated from the academy, Hanabi thought Hinata's purpose in life was to make her as miserable as possible. To summarize it all, Hanabi really hated her sister. The only time Hinata showed her any kindness was when the oblivious blonde idiot, her description of Naruto, visited Neji for a sparring session, and only because Hanabi's room was directly on top of the place they used to train, so she would occasionally step in and spend the whole day watching him. Hanabi thought it was quite pathetic of someone to crush over a person who doesn't even notice you at all, even though you drop obvious hints that you like them. But Hinata had no experience with boys, which, in contrast to Hanabi who had countless experience with boys, made her panic whenever someone asked her out. Hanabi was getting quite bored laying on the tree branch and was pondering if she should go back home or not when a gust of wind threw a tsunami of dead leaves at her, blocking her view of her sister. By the time she cleared the leaves out of her face, Hinata and her mysterious figure was gone from the corner. Hanabi heard soft whistling coming at a steady pace and shifted her weight to see who it was, but the consequence of shifting her weight made the branch she was laying on crack. As she tried to steady herself and keep the branch from breaking any further, her shirt got caught in one of the thorns in the tree. Thinking on reflex, she pulled against it, which shifted her weight, which caused the branch to crack even more. And here we find Hanabi barely breathing in hopes the branch wouldn't buckle under her. "Oh, please don't crack. Please don't crack. I'll burn you if you crack, so be nice and don't crack," Hanabi thought. She still could hear the whistling coming closer and started to pray that it wasn't someone she knew or that she wouldn't be noticed. The person who was whistling came into view and she saw that it was the annoying blonde that Neji sometimes sparred with. And so, once again, Hanabi began to pray that the branch would not fall and she along with it, but this ugly black cat that looked partially burnt ran right under her, leaving Hanabi with a lot of bad luck. Naruto, being oblivious of Hanabi in the tree, decided to approach the tree and he began to circle it. He stopped and, to Hanabi's luck, was standing right under the branch Hanabi was sitting on. Of course, Naruto, being Naruto, slapped the tree because he didn't like how it was looking at him. And because of that, the tree branch Hanabi was sitting on, praying it wouldn't fall, snapped and down came a cursing Hanabi, with a nice tear in her shirt, on top of Naruto. Now anyone who would have happened to pass by, though it was unlikely because it was 2-something in the morning, would think the two were doing something many would say was inappropriate for their ages. This is how it was. Naruto was laying on the floor all sprawled out with Hanabi's right leg embracing Naruto's left leg, her left hand on his chest and her right hand by his inner thigh. And to complete it, Hanabi's hair was all messed up, her shirt torn revealing an ivory-colored smooth neck that screamed, "Come place a hickey on me, you know you want to," and she was breathing quite hard, which made her look like a damsel in distress. Naruto laid unmoving and looked dazed, his eyes wide and focused on Hanabi's eyes. So many thoughts ran through his mind, and the fact that she was wearing thin silk pajamas that stuck to every curve on her body were not making them good thoughts. So, the two just stayed there unmoving, pale eyes looking into pretty blue ones. To add to their luck, Kakashi just happened to be on patrol and just happened to be walking down their street when he saw the two people in their position. He closed his Ika paradise and stood over the two saying, "Well, well, well, what do we have here?" Quote. Naruto snapped out of his daze and looked up to see Kakashi looking back at him. "Well?" Kakashi asked, glancing from Naruto to Hanabi at back. The two on the floor looked at each other, then at Kakashi, and said, "I think I can explain." They both tried to explain, disentangling themselves. "I understand," Kakashi said, grinning. "Next time you want to explicitly express your love to one another, do it in the privacy of a bedroom." "And Naruto, I thought you didn't like the young ones." Kakashi easily ducked the tree branch thrown at him and then grew serious. "What were you two doing out here?" he asked, donning his famous bored expression. "Well, Kakashi raised a hand, silencing both. "One at a time. Naruto, you go first," Kakashi said. "Well, you see, what had happened was, I was making ramen and my teapot caught on fire. Yeah, that's it. And I tried to get water, but I forgot nobody paid the water bill for me, so I had no water. In a panic, I threw the flaming teapot out the window, but it hit a cat and the cat caught on fire. So I chased after the cat, and when I put out the flames, I decided to take the long route back home and ended up here. Then she fell on me." Naruto grinned at Kakashi. "You have to be a complete dumbass to fall for that," Hanabi muttered. "Okay," Kakashi said with a nod. Hanabi bit on her tongue to stop her from saying something to the copy ninja that she would later regret. "And what about you?" Kakashi asked, nodding his head in her direction. Hanabi pulled up her shirt to try and cover the parts of her that were visible. "Well?" Kakashi asked again. Hanabi couldn't think of anything to say. And she really didn't want to tell the Junin why she was really out here. So she used the easiest excuse, "What's the difference?" she could have come up with. I was doing a special type of Hyuga training that enhances my tracking skills," Hanabi said as calmly as she could. Kakashi looked at her with his one visible eye and cracked a small smile. Kakashi, thinking he could pay off his debt to Tsunade-sama and make Naruto miserable, decided to let them go but tell them a believable lie which would make their lives miserable and his life stress-free. Mostly he wanted to make Naruto miserable because Naruto told Iruka about the hidden cameras Kakashi had installed inside of Iruka's shower. "Well, I could tell your father about this, and from what I hear, he has you on a tight leash," Kakashi said, looking at Hanabi, who tensed immediately. "And I could tell Iruka or Jiraiya to not pay your water bill." "Big meanie," Naruto mumbled. Hanabi, who was thinking of the punishments her father could give her if he found out, pleaded to Kakashi, saying, "Please don't tell my father." Naruto, seizing the chance to plead along with Hanabi, shouted, "I need to bathe, Kakashi-sensei. It's been 3 days." Hanabi grimaced and took 2 steps away from the blonde. Kakashi stood calmly, staring at the two teens, which was intimidating and creepy because they could only see one eye. "Well, I decided I won't tell your father, and I might let Iruka pay your water bill, but under one condition though." "What?" both exclaimed. "You have to clean Tsunade's office, which also consists of sorting and filing all documents in the proper cabinets." "I'll do it," Hanabi said, eager to avoid any problems with her father. Naruto, on the other hand, had to think about this. Tsunade's office was a real mess and people really didn't notice it because she hid everything with genjutsu. "Well, all 2 of you must agree." "Naruto," Kakashi said, looking in his direction. Naruto looked at the Hyuga calmly staring at him, face expressionless. Naruto figured that she was most likely worried and hiding it. He had heard how cruel Hyugas can treat their own and felt sorry for Hanabi and said, "I'll do it." Kakashi grinned. "All right, meet me here approximately 7 a.m. And with that, he strolled off with Ika paradise in hand. Naruto, grinning at Hanabi, said, "Get ready to work, you're off tomorrow." He walked off whistling, wind ruffling his hair as he disappeared in the shadows. Hanabi looked up in the sky and asked, "How bad can it be?" She watched a black cloud cover the moon from her view and returned home. "Where have you been, Hanabi?" Hiyashi demanded. Hanabi felt a paralyzing fear settled on her as she stared at her father. She felt like slapping herself thinking back on how careless she was in sneaking back to her own house. Sure enough, Hanabi had gotten inside without disturbing anybody or alerting the guards. But she didn't make sure that her father was asleep before she left, which was one big mistake because she met him sitting on the staircase waiting for her. Hanabi calmed herself and tried to think of another lie, but she was coming up with blanks. So she decided to borrow a lie. Well, what had happened was that the teapot had caught on fire and... "Don't lie to me, Hanabi," Hiyashi shouted. "Damn, I thought that would have worked," Hanabi thought. "So where were you, Hanabi?" Hiyashi demanded again. Hanabi, thinking that this was all Hanada's fault, decided to kill two birds with one stone and get both of them in trouble. You see, I went with Hanada to the little 24/7 garment store down by the creepy Chinese restaurant, to buy some orange and black knee socks along with some bras and pantyhose. I went tonight because it was only a midnight to 2 in the morning sale. We would have asked you to join us, but I didn't think that you would have wanted to go in a store asking for pantyhose, bras and such," Hanabi told him. "Is this true, Hanada?" Hiyashi asked his eldest daughter, who was standing in the hallway. Hanabi turned around to see Hanada standing in the hallway wearing a nightdress and looking quite sleepy. Hanabi figured that Hanada was either hiding what she was really wearing with genjutsu or reached home before she did changed and woke up their father. With her back facing her father, Hanabi quickly mouthed to Hanada to help and play along. Hanada nodded at Hanabi and walked next to her. Hanabi then turned around to face her father again. "Well," Hiyashi asked. "FFA father," Hanada stuttered. "She's telling the truth." Hiyashi looked at Hanabi, who was focusing on a dead roach on the floor, feeling relieved and shocked that Hanada actually helped her. "But," Hanada continued, that was yesterday." Hanabi glared at Hanada, who was glaring back at Hanabi, smirking. Hanabi's eyes dilated at her sister in shock of her betrayal. Hiyashi, who looked like he was about to strangle his youngest daughter, calmed and said in a subtle voice, "The both of you go to bed. Hanabi, I will deal with you tomorrow, and Hanada, I'd like to see you before you leave in the morning." Hiyashi retreated back to his room, leaving behind his two daughters to think about what punishment he was going to give them. As Hanabi started towards her room, she glared back at her sister. "Why did you do that?" Hanada replied, "I saw you with Naruto-kun. So what? I have to waste the rest of the day with him, thanks to you." Hanada stared at her sister and asked in a dangerous voice, "What do you mean you have to spend the rest of the day with him?" Hanabi argued back, "If you hadn't sneaked out of the house, I wouldn't have." Hanabi paused, remembering that her sister was obsessed with the blonde idiot. She then smirked at Hanada for a while, and then her smirk slowly turned into a devious smile. Hanabi was formulating a plan to get back at her sister. She had a feeling that she was going to enjoy making her sister jealous and envious of her. "Well," Hanada asked, looking paranoid, "aren't you going to finish?" "No," Hanabi said, still smirking. "Me and Naruto's business is none of your own, and since I'm seeing him early, I ought to get to bed. See you whenever we finish our business." Hanabi turned and left to go to her room. "Hanabi, where are you going?" Hanada asked. "Come back here and finish explaining." Hanabi just ignored her sister and continued on her way to her bedroom. "Hanabi, I'm talking to you," Hanada shouted. "Get back here." Hanabi slammed her door shut, leaving her sister to ponder on what she just told her. Hanabi laid down in the bed thinking she'd have to be up extra early to avoid her father before he could hand down his punishment on her. Hanabi was half asleep when she heard several thuds on her door and heavy footsteps running down the stairs. Hanabi dismissed it and rolled over on her side. She then drifted off to sleep. 2 hours later, Hanabi opened her room door to see several butcher knives sticking out of her door. She stared in the door thinking, "Father is going to throw me in that well when he sees this. All the better to hurry up and leave before he wakes up." She then flicked the handle of the nearest knife and watched it wobble. After playing with the knives, Hanabi made her way to the bathroom to get ready. As she was closing the bathroom door, another knife whizzed past her head and landed neatly in one of the shower tiles. She locked the door and shouted, "It seems that you're drowning in jealousy. You would have gotten me in the head if you weren't so eyed." It was quiet for a while, then there were several more thuds on the door and an aggravated shout. Hanabi laughed, jumped in the shower, jumped out, dressed in the bathroom, and then climbed through the bathroom window to leave before her father could catch her and to meet the blonde and the stupid Junin for their assignment. Hanabi stood under a tree trying to get shade, while the burning sun sent deadly heat waves toward everything in its path. She wiped away a bead of sweat from her forehead and stepped closer toward the tree. "Hey." Hanabi turned towards the voice. The ever-smiling blonde, wearing a small black shirt and orange pants, jogged up next to her and joined her in the shadows of the tree. "It's quite hot, isn't it? Where's Kakashi-sensei?" the blonde asked cheerily, as if the intense heat wasn't bothering him. "He hasn't arrived as yet," Hanabi replied coldly. The blonde hummed and collapsed next to her. Hanabi used the rest of her time examining the blonde next to her. "Look at him," she thought. "That ugly blonde hair, those creepy blue eyes, that nasty tan skin, those disgusting muscles that flex themselves every time you take a breath." She quietly sneered at him. Naruto, unknowingly, stretched it in the cutest and wildest manner ever, showing Hanabi a perfect view of all the muscles that was hidden in the orange jacket he was wearing earlier that morning. "Oh my gosh, he's gorgeous." Hanabi blushed. Naruto noticed Hanabi staring at him and asked, "What are you looking at?" "Something on my face." Hanabi sneered at him in reply, "Your ugly face." Naruto let out a loud laugh. "I'm ugly. Ha. I have been told by numerous people that I'm quite why." Hanabi could believe that statement. "The problem here is," Naruto continued, "that you're the ugly one and you're trying to pin your ugliness on me. You're just an ugly bastard in my opinion." Hanabi gave him a cold stare and said, "The only people who would find you why is gay people. A perfect example would be Uchiha Sasuke. He was gay to the extreme. He thought of you as why. And from what I heard he was obsessed with freaks of nature, that's why he was always with you." "What? Were you saying something?" "I wasn't listening for a second. I was watching the leaves dance," Naruto said as if he wasn't listening. "I swear, you Hyugas are so conceited that you just love to hear yourself talk." Hanabi turned toward him and said, "You know damn right you heard me. Freak of Konoha." Naruto's face saddened for a few seconds, then it hardened. He stood up, looked Hanabi in the face and said in a truculent tone, "Don't ever call me a freak. If you don't know anything, keep your damn mouth shut." Hanabi started to say something but closed her mouth, an ominous aura coming off of the blonde. Naruto stepped closer to Hanabi, so their faces were mere millimeters apart. Voice just barely above a whisper, Naruto said, "The only thing I hate more than someone teasing me is an arrogant, ignorant, snobbish, conceited, ugly, ghostly white, pale-eyed proud-assed Hyuga." He then placed a firm grip around her neck and sneered, "I could kill you if I want and nobody'll know what happened." Hanabi started to tremble. She looked in his eyes and saw a faint hint of red quivering behind blue eyes. A sick feeling of fear ran through her. Placing a weak grip on Naruto's neck, she shakily replied, "I'm not afraid of you." Naruto snorted and took a closer step, pinning Hanabi to the tree. Summoning any courage from within her body, Hanabi screamed at the top of her lungs, "Rape! Rape!" Kakashi appeared from nowhere. "Rape? Is there something I should know or document for future references?" Naruto jumped back, releasing Hanabi, and was about to heatedly deny any accusations, but Kakashi raised a hand. "You have better things to worry about." He looked toward the stricken Hanabi who was leaning against the tree for support and said, "Sorry I'm late, I was chased and almost pecked to death by a bunch of pigeons." Hanabi, standing on her own now, gave the ninja a "you expect me to believe that crap" look. Hanabi glanced at Naruto who appeared to be back to his regular smiling state, ominous aura gone. Kakashi approached the two of them and said, "I do hope you two are ready to work. I'll assist whenever I can." Hanabi asked. Exactly what are we going to clean at the Hokage's office? Kakashi, grinning, replied, you'll know when we get there. And Naruto, I need you to give Jiraiya something for me. I would do it myself, but you're the only one who knows where he is right now. Also, tell him Tsunade-sama has Hunter Ninja looking for him. He's always on the move. Naruto looked at Kakashi as if his head was dangling by his ear. Arrow Senin. You expect me to go to where he is staying? Ha. You wish, Kakashi-sensei. Every time I go there, some floozy tries to rape me. I refuse to step foot in that house of ill repute. Kakashi grinned at Naruto. He must have known Tsunade-sama was looking for him. Bekasu, that'll be the last place she'll look. Naruto grimaced and Hanabi rolled her eyes. Kakashi then led them off toward the Hokage's office. Hanabi stood across from the two guards that were standing in front of the door that lead into the Hokage's office, waiting on Kakashi to tell her to come in. She wanted to know what's so special with Naruto that he had to go inside with Kakashi, and she stayed out. The door cracked open and a hand holding an orange book poked out, ushering her to come inside. The guards stepped aside and she walked in. The first thing that came to her mind was that this was going to be easy. The only thing that was in the room was a single stack of papers on the Hokage's desk. Hanabi glanced at Naruto, who was at ease in one of the chairs placed in front of the desk, and Kakashi was standing at the door reading his orange book. Hanabi glanced at the Hokage and instantly felt afraid. This was the first time she ever saw the Hokage in person. Blonde hair, kinda tall, and a stern face. Yep, Hanabi thought. This is no lady to mess with. Tsunade studied the young Hyuga that was looking at her. She then leaned on her desk, propping her chin with her hands. Hyuga, Hanabi, I presume? She asked. Yes, Hokage-sama, Hanabi said while bowing, not forgetting her manners. So I hear you and Naruto are going to clean my office. Tsunade started. I'm not going to be here to watch you, so I would like to see it in order and nothing missing when I return. Standing up while cracking her knuckles, Tsunade said, if I find that anything is missing upon my return, you and Naruto will face dire consequences. Hanabi was having a hard time keeping herself calm and not shaking with fear. She nodded at what Tsunade just said. Dire consequences, Tsunade repeated. She punched the wall to enforce her point and Hanabi jumped. Naruto let out a snort saying, ha 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 ha, you're scared of Oba-chan. Tsunade glared at Naruto and he immediately shut up. She removed her hand from the wall, showing the small crater she had created. Hanabi, wide-eyed, took a step away from the Hokage, who was now walking towards the door. Come on, Kakashi, the Hokage said. Let's play a game of poker while they clean my office. I don't think so. I lost the last time, came Kakashi's reply, still reading his orange book. Oh well, Suan said, walking out the door. The stakes were going to be how and where Iruka spends his week vacation starting tomorrow. Kakashi immediately shut his book and followed the Hokage out the door, saying, on second thought, I do have a little time. The door shut behind him, leaving Naruto and Hanabi alone in the room. Hanabi walked towards the Hokage's desk and examined the single sheet of paper placed on Tsunade's desk. She picked it up and read it. I'm placing you in charge of this mission, Hyuga Hanabi. I expect everything to be cleaned inside and out and be put back in place upon my return. After you and Naruto finish cleaning, try to persuade him to take some pills I have hidden under my desk, or an alternative to the pills, I have a needle injection right next to the pills. Good luck trying to wrestle him down if you choose the needle. He has to eat first. Do not let him see this note. In fact, dispose of it once you read this. And remember, there are dire consequences if you fail to clean my office. P.S. Get him to take those pills, by all means necessary. He will refuse to take them. The fifth Hokage of Konoha. Hanabi tore the note in half and threw it in the garbage. She started to walk towards the stack of papers behind the desk when she noticed that Naruto was watching her and had been since she stepped in the office. She stopped and turned to face him. What? She asked him. Naruto looked at her with big blue eyes and said, nothing. I just don't like you. Hanabi said. And I don't like you, but this office has to be cleaned. So, let's just call a truce for time being so we can get this office cleaned before the Hokage comes back. So, truce or not? Naruto leaned back in his chair and pondered if he should just duck out and leave her with all the work, but Tsunade might come looking for him if he left. Think of it in this sense. Hanabi started. If you help me clean this office, you won't have to see me again. Hanabi watched as Naruto smiled at what she just said. Naruto walked towards Hanabi and extended a hand signaling a truce. Gingerly, she shook his hand. Hanabi divided the room in half so she could work on one side and Naruto on the other. And so they worked separately for most of the morning in silence, not even looking at each other. Hanabi, after 3 long hours, placed her final stack of papers neatly in a corner and turned around in time to catch Naruto stuffing a few papers under the carpet. Naruto, you ass! Hanabi shouted. Oh, shut the hell up. She won't notice. Naruto shouted back at her. Yes, she will, and she's gonna. Hanabi was interrupted mid-rant by knocking. Naruto opened the door to reveal a blushing Hinata with food. Hanabi walked from behind Naruto to see who it was. Hinata stared in shock as she saw her sister standing next to Naruto. Nabai turned to Naruto and coldly asked, "What is it doing here?" Naruto winced at that comment and Hinata frowned and stuttered. Kakashi-sensei asked me to bring in Naruto-kun some lunch. Why, thank you, Hinata, Naruto said as he took the lunch from her, causing Hinata to blush. He was about to open it and eat it when Hanabi snatched it from him and ran to the window. Naruto started towards her but stopped when Hanabi pushed her left hand out the window, which was holding the food. Naruto thought about the idea of tackling her to get it, but she could drop it if he got her. So he decided he would try to reason with her. You really wouldn't do that, right? Naruto asked cautiously, his stomach growling. Sure I would, Hanabi replied. But I'm really hungry, Naruto whined. Hanabi was enjoying every moment of this. She loved to watch people beg. Well, I'm not, Hanabi replied smirking. Hanabi, please just give it to him. Hinata pleaded. He'll get it as soon as you get your ass out of here and he finishes what he has to do. Hinata stiffened and turned to leave the room, stumbling over a vase with a daisy on it on her way out. Hanabi was so concentrated on watching Hinata leave that she forgot all about Naruto. Naruto approached Hanabi from behind and wrapped his left hand strongly around her slender waist and pulled her from the window. With his left hand holding her steady, he used his right arm to grab the hand that was holding his food. Hanabi struggled to break free, but Naruto tightened his grip on her. Get your hands off of me, Hanabi shouted while struggling to keep the food in her hand and out of his reach. Get your hands off my food, Naruto shouted, trying to get the food from Hanabi. Since he was making no progress, he decided to play dirty and blow in her ear. Hanabi stilled when she felt his breath in her ear. The feeling of his heated breath in her ear sent a foreign feeling down her spine that caused her to shiver. And at that moment the door opened to reveal Hinata standing in the doorway looking down at the ground, muttering that she had forgotten her bag. Naruto and Hanabi froze in their position, hoping that Hinata wouldn't look up and see them. Hinata picked up her bag and, head still down, started toward the door, but she looked up as she was leaving and saw what looked like Naruto embracing Hanabi. Hinata gasped and stared in shock at Hanabi and Naruto. What or why you doing? She stammered. I can explain, Naruto said, letting go of Hanabi, causing her to fall on the floor. He then started toward Hinata. Hinata backed up toward the door, anger boiling inside of her. Hanabi braced herself against the wall to keep herself from falling. Hanabi stared at Naruto, who was looking at Hinata, who was glaring at Hanabi. An awkward silence filled the room. Hinata picked up her bag and left the room, not before looking back at Hanabi, who was smirking at her. Hanabi then slid down to the floor, still feeling dazed about what Naruto had done to her. Naruto resumed cleaning his part of Tsunade's office in the awkward silence that lingered in the air. The food lay forgotten on the ground next to Hanabi. After about a minute or so, Hanabi got up and sat on the other side of the room away from Naruto. She then began to think about what had happened a few minutes earlier and why she felt thrilled when Naruto breathed in her ear. Naruto, on the other hand, was thinking how to explain to Hinata what had happened. He really wanted to stay her friend because she always looked out for him. He knew she liked him, but he didn't like her the same way she liked him. He wasn't as stupid as everyone thought him to be. He was aware that she was obsessed with him and he really didn't want to ruin his friendship with her. "You know your food is going to get cold," Hanabi said, breaking the silence. Naruto almost forgot that she was still in the room with him and replied, "I'm not hungry anymore." "So you're just gonna let it waste?" "Might as well. I'm not gonna eat it." Hanabi got up from where she was sitting, picked up the food, and walked in front of Naruto. Naruto looked up to see Hanabi's expressionless face staring down at him. "What do you want?" he asked, now annoyed at her. Hanabi dropped the bag with the food in front of Naruto and said, "Eat." "What? Eat the damn food," Hanabi shouted at him, her temper rising because she had just remembered that she was in trouble with her father. "What for? If you don't eat, I get in damn trouble." "What for?" Naruto snapped. "Hokage-sama instructed me to tell you to take some pills help strengthen your body," Hanabi said, conveniently leaving out the needle injection part. She then digged around in her pocket and pulled out a yellow bottle with pills and handed it to him. Naruto snatched them from her, a little embarrassed that Tsunade told her about his pills, which he hated because they had side effects that reacted as soon as he took them. He didn't want to take them in front of Hanabi because it could and most likely would lead to embarrassing events. "Well?" Hanabi asked. "Well, what? Aren't you going to take them?" "Sure I am." Naruto got up and made his way to the window with the food, muttering about needing fresh air to eat. Hanabi, who was warned that he would show resistance in taking the pills, prepared the needle while his back was turned to her. Naruto peered out the window to see if anyone was walking below and threw the pills and the food out the window. He heard the door click and turned around to see Hanabi standing in front of the door, with the needle in full view. We interrupt this program to explain why Naruto needs these pills or the injection. Now, since Naruto eats only ramen, he would naturally lack all the other minerals and vitamins found in other food like fruits and veggies. So being the loving Hokage she was, Tsunade made these pills and the injection that supplies Naruto's body with all the vitamins and minerals he misses. For the record, let's just say Naruto has a fear of needles and Hanabi has an obsession with them. We now go back to the story. Sorry for any inconveniences caused. Naruto started to back away from Hanabi saying, Now Hanabi. Let's not do anything rash." Hanabi smirked and slowly made her way toward him. The only escape between Hanabi and the needle was the door, which she conveniently locked behind her. The window was too small for him to fit through. "Well, Naruto," Hanabi started, "we can do this the easy way or the embarrassing way." "How about no way?" Naruto replied, edging away from Hanabi as she mimicked every move he made. Hanabi sighed and said, "Embarrassing way it is then." Hanabi ran toward Naruto and lunged the arm with the needle towards him. Naruto threw himself on the floor to dodge it. He then rolled onto his feet and made a break for the door. Hanabi saw this and did a handstand that landed her in front of him. He then feinted to run to her right and she fell for it, leaving him a opening to go right, and that's what he did. Hanabi did a low roundhouse sweep kick, trying to trip him, but he jumped over it. Naruto thought he was in the clear but failed to see the vase and tripped over it, landing flat on the floor. Hanabi then seized this chance and ran toward the door to block his escape, but tripped over the daisy in the vase. Naruto tripped over and fell on top of him as he was getting up. And so, the two began to wrestle over the floor with Hanabi trying to stick him and Naruto trying to roll away from her. In some weird way, Hanabi had managed to pin him to the ground. Naruto struggled beneath her, but, surprisingly, Hanabi was keeping him in place. Damn it, keep still, Hanabi said, forcefully tearing off the arm of his shirt. No, you're gonna stick me with that infected piece of metal, came Naruto's exasperated reply. It's not infected, damn it. The Hokage made it herself. Hanabi said through deep breaths. How the hell I know she didn't already stick someone with that thing? Naruto replied. Stop being a non, keep still already. No. Hanabi decided to try a different tactic to get him to take the needle, which was her last resort. With much difficulty, Hanabi had managed to sit on his legs to stop him from kicking at her. And pinning his hands over his head, she said in a soft voice, "It won't hurt. Trust me." "No, I won't trust you," Naruto shouted and struggled even more to get out of Hanabi's hold. "For the record, you forced me to do this," Hanabi stated. She then lowered herself to his ear and blew in it, causing Naruto to go still. Naruto's face went red when Hanabi pulled him up, so she was sitting in his lap. She then wrapped her legs tightly around his waist, loosened the top button of her shirt, ruffled up her hair, wrapped her hands around his neck and positioned one so that the needle was right behind his arm, and pulled herself closer, molding their bodies together. Naruto, who was barely breathing, remained still. Their bodies was so close that he was smelling her hair, which reminded him of the forest. He was so dazed about how close their bodies were that he didn't felt the small prick on the back of his arm. Hanabi lowered her head to his ear again and whispered in a sultry manner, "Now that wasn't so hard." Hanabi's face turned a deep crimson, resembling Hinata when coming in close contact with Naruto, as she felt something warm and hard throbbing against her inner thigh. She froze and looked at Naruto, who was blushing furiously. He opened his mouth to say something but nothing came out. And at that moment, the door just happened to swing open and there were several gasps as 5 pairs of eyes stared at the two people on the floor.